Have you ever felt the sting of being in a room yet somehow unseen, as if your presence carried no weight? You speak, you move, but an invisible current tells you that respect is slipping quietly from your grasp. It's a wound that leaves no scar, yet it cuts deeper than you realize. The Stoics knew this truth well. We are often betrayed not by enemies, but by the habits we carry. Small habits, hidden ones, a careless word here, a delayed step there. They erode trust silently, like water wearing down stone. And before long, others begin to doubt not just your words, but your very strength, your integrity, your place among them. Marcus Aurelius reminded us that character is destiny. But what happens when the patterns we tolerate in ourselves quietly write a destiny we never intended? What if the wall between you and respect is not built by others, but by your own hands? Stay with me, because what you're about to hear may reveal more than you expect. It may show you the single rule that keeps anyone from ever outsmarting you. As we step into the first chapter, imagine this: a room buzzing with voices, laughter spilling in every corner, and yet in the middle of it all, your words betray you. Not because you shouted, not because you offended, but because you whispered. A careless remark about someone not present, a subtle dig dressed as humor, a story shared that was never yours to tell. That's how gossip begins. It slips from the tongue like smoke, invisible yet suffocating, wrapping itself around your reputation before you realize what you've done. Gossip feels safe, it feels light, it feels like nothing, and that's the trick. It masquerades as connection, as belonging, as if tearing down another builds a bond with the one beside you. But in reality, it's a quiet assassin. The moment you speak of someone in their absence, you carve a silent question into the mind of your listener. If they speak this way about others, what will they say about me? That question lingers long after the laughter fades. Respect is not destroyed in explosions. It is corroded in whispers. The Stoics knew this. Marcus Aurelius said, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." Gossip is the opposite of that command. It is not the act of being, it is the act of hiding. You hide behind the flaws of others so you don't have to face your own. You hide your insecurity in the comfort of stories that aren't yours. But as Seneca reminded us, it is a rough road that leads to the heights of greatness. Gossip is the easy road, and easy roads never lead upward. They lead in circles, down paths where nothing grows. Think of how much energy is wasted dissecting the mistakes of others. Every time you point at someone else's stumble, you distract from your own unfinished climb. It is far simpler to mock a colleague than to master your craft. Far easier to repeat a rumor than to wrestle with your own weaknesses. But what does that ease cost you? Wisdom, growth, the respect that only discipline can bring. The truth is harsh. Gossip never proves strength. It only reveals insecurity. Picture this: a man at work known for his sharp tongue, always ready with the latest story about who failed where, who made what mistake. At first, people laugh. They lean in, entertained. But weeks pass, months even, and you notice a shift. Conversations stop when he approaches. Invitations dry up. Colleagues avoid confiding in him. It is not hatred that pushes them away. It is fear. Fear that their words, their struggles, their secrets will be served up as his next meal. He wonders why no one trusts him anymore. The answer is simple. He traded their trust for a moment of relevance. In our world today, that trade is even more costly. Every word is recorded, magnified, archived. A careless remark can spread like wildfire. not just ruining friendships, but burning down careers. A single indulgence can scar a reputation for years. What feels like a spark in the dark can blaze into an inferno that consumes opportunities you never saw coming. So ask yourself, are a few seconds of shallow laughter worth the cost of your integrity? Epictetus gave us the antidote. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. Gossip is noise. Restraint is strength. The man who refuses to gossip is the man who becomes trusted. Others may not applaud him, but they will confide in him. They may not say it aloud, but they will admire the rare discipline it takes to walk away from an easy road. Imagine someone turning to you, not for entertainment, not for mockery, but for wisdom. That is the fruit of silence. And how do you do it? The next time gossip arises, you don't need a lecture, you don't need to fight. You simply redirect. You say, I'd rather not talk about them when they're not here. Or you guide the conversation towards something meaningful, something that builds rather than breaks. At first it feels uncomfortable. You might even feel excluded, but slowly, quietly, people will notice. They will see that you do not trade integrity for belonging. And because of that, they will give you something gossipers never receive: respect. Respect is not declared. It is carved slowly in choices, the way stone is shaped by a patient hand. The restraint to listen rather than whisper. The courage to stay silent when others choose the easy laugh. The decision to guard not only your words, but the dignity of those not present. Gossip is a shadow game, a hunger for attention that only leaves you emptier. Integrity is the opposite. It is substance. It is weight. It is the presence that fills a room even when you say nothing. So here is the question, simple yet sharp. Who do you want to be? The one people trust, admire, turn to in their hour of need, or the one they avoid, not because they dislike you, but because they fear you will turn their lives into your next story. Every whisper builds or breaks your character. Every word spoken behind another's back is either a step upward or a stumble downward. The choice is yours. This is where the journey begins. If you can master your tongue, you begin to master yourself. And when you master yourself, no one can outsmart you. Let's step forward. Moving into the second chapter, let us face a ghost that often lives in silence. It wears a smile, but the smile is hollow. It answers, "I'm fine," when the heart is bleeding. It slips sarcasm into sentences that should have carried honesty. It closes the mouth when words are needed, leaving only a wall of silence. This is where respect dies quietly, not in anger, not in argument, but in the shadows of what is never said. Now imagine standing in front of someone you care about. They ask what's wrong. You cross your arms, breathe heavy, and whisper, "Nothing." Yet inside, a storm is raging. You want them to see it. You want them to guess. And when they don't, your frustration grows. The room fills with tension, but not truth. That is the trap of being passive-aggressive. You think you are protecting yourself from conflict, but in truth, you are planting seeds of distance. Epictetus warned us, "It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Passive aggression is a reaction born not of courage, but of fear. Fear of being hurt, fear of being misunderstood, fear of being seen fully. Yet, by choosing silence, sarcasm, or games, you don't avoid conflict, you multiply it. Problems that could have been spoken and solved begin to fester like wounds left untreated. Let me give you a face to this lesson. Picture John. John felt invisible in his own home. He longed for appreciation, but instead of saying, "I feel unseen," he chose sighs, smirks, and cold shoulders. He waited for his partner to read his mind, to decode his moods. But she couldn't. She began to walk on eggshells, avoiding the landmines of his unspoken resentment. Over time, her warmth cooled. Not because she stopped caring, but because his silence became exhausting. By the time John realized his games were driving her away, the damage was deep. Ask yourself, how many of your connections, friends, colleagues, family, have thinned because of this very pattern? How many people have stepped back from you, not out of dislike, but out of weariness, tired of guessing what your heart refused to say? Trust is fragile. When people cannot trust you to be honest, they withdraw. And when trust fades, respect follows. Marcus Aurelius said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." To be one means to stand naked in your truth, not cloaked in riddles. If something bothers you, say it. If a boundary is crossed, name it. When you feel overlooked, admit it without venom. The next time your hand itches to type a barbed message, "Wow, must be nice to have all that free time," stop. Ask yourself, what am I truly longing to say? And why am I afraid to say it directly? The roots of passive aggression are almost always fear. Fear of confrontation, fear of rejection, fear of being vulnerable. But here is the paradox. Running from direct words doesn't keep you safe. It keeps you stuck. Conflict spoken with respect can strengthen a bond. Silence laced with hostility only poisons it. The Stoics knew this. They believed courage was not found in battles alone, but in facing truth with clarity. Even in the workplace, this pattern erodes respect. The colleague who sends veiled emails, who drops hints instead of addressing problems, is not trusted. They are seen as manipulative, weak, or unwilling to take responsibility. Contrast that with the leader who calmly says, "We need to address this issue directly." That leader earns loyalty. That leader commands respect. People do not follow those who play games. They follow those who speak plainly and act firmly. Consider this shift. What if, instead of resentment, you chose honesty? What if, instead of sarcasm, you chose calm clarity? Imagine how people would see you: strong, mature, reliable. Someone who doesn't waste time in shadows but meets life head-on. Epictetus also said, "It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows." If you cling to the illusion that your silence avoids drama, you will never grow. You'll remain trapped, confusing avoidance for peace, when in truth, it is only cowardice disguised. The next time you feel sarcasm rise to your lips or the urge to retreat into a cold silence, pause, take a breath, ask, "What do I hope to achieve?" Almost always the answer will be found in directness. Almost always the door opens when you have the courage to knock, not when you stand outside waiting for someone to sense your presence. So here is the lesson. Clarity is strength. Directness is courage. Respect is not earned by games, but by truth. At the end of the day, what people remember is not whether you were always agreeable, but whether you were honest. Whether they could trust your words to mean what they said. Passive aggression builds walls. Honesty opens paths. And the paths you open with truth will carry respect far beyond the moment. This is where the choice lies before you. Will you remain in the shadows, hoping others decode the silence in your heart? Or will you step into the light, speaking with the clarity that commands trust? The answer shapes not just how others see you, but who you become. From here, the path to respect is simple, though never easy. Abandon the game, speak with courage, and let your honesty be your strength. Advancing to the third chapter, let us confront a mirror that many of us avoid. It is not the mirror in your room, nor the reflection in your phone screen. It is the mirror of accountability. Few things strip respect away as quickly as the refusal to take responsibility. You have seen it before. A man stumbles, yet immediately points to the floor as if the ground betrayed him. A colleague misses a deadline and blames the clock, the manager, the weather. Perhaps you have done it too, whispering excuses into the silence, hoping no one notices. But they do. Everyone does. And every excuse says the same thing. I am not in control of my own life. Now imagine a storm crashing against a ship at sea. The captain can curse the waves, blame the winds, shake his fists at the sky. But none of that keeps the vessel afloat. The only thing that matters is how he steers. Epictetus knew this truth when he said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Life will bring storms, setbacks, and losses, but your reaction, whether you seize the wheel or abandon it, defines your character. Excuses are the language of those who let go of the wheel. Responsibility is the grip of those who refuse to sink. Think of Michael Jordan, standing as one of the greatest athletes of all time. He admitted, "I've missed more than 9,000 shots. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times I was trusted to make the game-winning shot and missed. I have failed over and over again. And that is why I succeed." Notice what he didn't say. He never blamed referees, coaches, or teammates. He owned every failure and turned it into fuel. That is what separates those who are respected from those who are dismissed. Failure did not diminish him. His ownership of it elevated him. Ask yourself, what could your life become if you stopped giving your power away to excuses? What mountains could you climb if you stopped blaming the terrain and started climbing with resolve? Responsibility is not self-punishment. It is liberation. It is the declaration that your life belongs to you. Each time you own your mistake, you plant a seed of trust in the minds of those around you. People begin to see you as reliable, steady, someone they can count on when the storm rises. On the other hand, the excuse maker becomes isolated. Slowly, others step back. They grow weary of the constant deflections, the endless reasons why nothing is ever their fault. Respect drains away, not in anger, but in quiet disappointment. In a world where accountability is rare, those who practice it shine like beacons. They earn more trust. They rise higher. They attract opportunities because everyone wants to build with those who can shoulder weight rather than run from it. Seneca once said, "It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare. It is because we do not dare that things are difficult." Avoiding responsibility feels safe in the moment, but it makes every obstacle heavier. Daring to own your life, your missteps as well as your victories, lightens the load. Because once you say, "This is on me," you also say, "I have the power to change it." That is the foundation of resilience. Picture a leader who admits when he is wrong. Imagine him standing before his team saying, "This decision was mine, and it failed. Here is how we will correct it." His people respect him, not less, but more. Now imagine the opposite, the leader who points fingers, blames others, hides behind excuses. His team nods in the room but doubts him in their hearts. One commands loyalty, the other inspires fear and distance. Which do you think endures? The next time you hear yourself forming an excuse, pause. Catch the words before they escape. Ask instead, what can I learn here? How can I turn this failure into strength? That shift is subtle, but it is life-altering. Each time you choose responsibility over blame, you carve strength into your character. You move closer to the respect of others and closer to the respect of yourself. Because at the end of the day, you cannot demand trust from the world if you refuse to trust yourself with the truth. This is the turning point. Excuses are chains. Responsibility is the key. One keeps you trapped, the other sets you free. So, advancing from here, the question stands before you with sharp clarity. Will you continue to hide behind circumstances, or will you rise to own your life? The answer determines not just how others see you, but how you see yourself. And the man who dares to own his actions is the man who cannot be broken. Entering the fourth chapter, let us face something deceptively small, yet deeply revealing. You walk into a room, and before you even open your mouth, the judgment has already been made. Your hair unkempt, your clothes wrinkled, an odor that turns heads for all the wrong reasons. The words you prepared, the ideas you hold, the strength you wish to show, they are drowned before they can surface. Respect slips away, not because of what you said, but because of what you neglected. Now imagine meeting a man who commands silence the moment he enters, not because he shouts, not because of titles, but because he is put together. He carries himself with care. His presence says, "I respect myself, therefore I respect you." People lean in, ready to hear his voice long before he speaks. That is the power of simple discipline over appearance. And when neglected, the opposite is just as true. Poor hygiene is not just about smell or sight. It's a silent message. I do not care enough about myself, about others, about this moment. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." How you present yourself physically is a reflection of what lives inside. Neglect of the body hints at neglect of the mind. Wrinkled clothes whisper of wrinkled discipline. Unwashed skin carries the shadow of an untrained spirit. Stoicism teaches that greatness is not built in grand gestures, but in the small daily habits that shape character. Hygiene is not vanity, it is a visible testament to self-respect. Consider this truth. First impressions strike fast, and they cut deep. Before you even speak, people are measuring you. They cannot help it. It is human nature. A colleague arrives disheveled at a meeting, and though his ideas may be sharp, the attention is already lost. A leader enters unkempt, and his authority evaporates before his words take form. We are wired to respect those who carry themselves with presence. You don't need luxury, you don't need fashion. You need care, neatness, and discipline. But let us not stop at how others see us. Hygiene is about how we see ourselves. Each act of care is a declaration, I am in control. I decide how I face the day. When you neglect these rituals, you unconsciously reinforce laziness, low worth, or despair. Yet when you rise, wash, groom, and present yourself with intention, you tell your own mind, I matter, I am capable, I choose strength over drift. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Even in chaos, even in struggle, you can decide how you show up. And it does not demand greatness. It demands consistency. Shower, brush, dress with respect. Small acts, yet their weight is heavy. When you look your best, you feel your best. Confidence grows, and people respond, not always with words, but with trust, with openness, with respect. People may never tell you to your face that your hygiene has cost you. They will not announce it, They will simply withdraw. They will sit elsewhere. They will cut conversations short. Invitations will fade. Respect dissolves in silence until you stand alone wondering why. It was never personal. It was comfort, or rather, the lack of it. Seneca wrote, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." Discipline is not only forged in philosophy or in suffering, it is forged in the quiet, daily polish of self-care. The gem shines because it is refined. The man earns respect because he does not neglect the smallest duties. Hygiene may feel trivial, but it is the ground upon which presence is built. So here is the choice before you. Will you let carelessness define the way the world sees you? Or will you take command of the small, simple acts that declare discipline? Because every morning when you rise and prepare yourself, you are not just washing a body, you are training a soul. You're saying to the world, and more importantly to yourself, I am worth respect. And from this point forward, respect is not something you ask for. It is something you embody. This is where strength begins, not in speeches or victories, but in the unseen rituals that shape who you are before you enter the room. And from here, the path carries us deeper into the hidden habits that either command honor or destroy it. Advancing to the 5th chapter, let us step into a room heavy with sighs. The voice that fills the air is not one of vision or courage, but of constant lament. The boss is unfair. The work is too much. The coffee is terrible. At first you nod. You even sympathize. But slowly, something changes. Their words begin to weigh on you like stones carried in your pockets. You find yourself avoiding them. Why? Because complaint is a contagion. Stand near it long enough and you start to see the world through its grey lens. Now, imagine yourself at work, sitting across from a colleague who, every day, finds fault in everything. The pay, the hours, the people. At first, you lend an ear, but with each conversation, your energy drains. Their words do not inspire solutions. They inspire fatigue. Negativity spreads like smoke in a closed room. It clouds not only the one who speaks, but also the one who listens. And the fire that feeds it? A refusal to choose strength. Epictetus told us, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Complaining is reaction without wisdom. It is surrender disguised as expression. Each complaint is an unconscious admission, I am powerless. Yet the Stoics remind us, power is always within reach. You cannot control the world, but you can control your response. You can rise above or sink beneath. And constant complaining is always the sinking. Consider the man who spends years railing against his job. He hates his boss, mistrusts his colleagues, resents his pay. His friends, patient at first, listen, but over time, they grow weary. The pattern never changes. He never takes action to improve, never seeks a new path, never reshapes his mind. In the end, his bitterness does not just poison his work, it corrodes his friendships. The cruelest part, he cannot see that he is the author of his own unhappiness. Ask yourself, have you ever fallen into this habit? Have you allowed the small irritations of life to become your anthem, repeating until others hear only exhaustion when you speak? Complaining is a trap. It convinces you that naming the problem is enough, when in truth, it only deepens the wound. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." The shift begins in a single pause. The next time you feel complaint rising to your lips, stop. Ask, can I change this? If yes, act. If not, accept. Then move. That is the Stoics way. Think of the people you admire most. They are not those who fill the air with problems. They are those who step into chaos and offer calm. They are those who see the storm and say, "Here is how we endure." To complain is easy. To act is hard. To accept with grace is harder still. And it is in that hardness that respect is born. Resilience is not coldness. It is not silence. It is a steady flame that warms a room rather than smokes it out. When you embody resilience, people trust you. They draw closer. They see in you not just someone who survives, but someone who steadies the ship for others. That is true leadership. That is true strength. So, let us be honest. Complaints will always tempt us. Life will always hand us reasons. But your power lies in the choice. Will you be the voice of bitterness or the presence of calm? When you face this choice, remember, one drains the room, the other fills it with light. Here is my invitation to you. The next time you catch yourself ready to complain, pause and choose strength instead. And if you are walking this same path of resilience, write one word below: strength. Let it be your marker, your vow. And if these words have stirred something in you, subscribe, not for me, but as a quiet promise to yourself that you will no longer feed the trap of complaint, but rise above it. Complaints change nothing. Strength changes everything, and the respect you seek will not come from the problems you name, but from the wisdom you embody. From here, the path grows clearer. Let go of bitterness and step into the discipline that makes life worthy of respect. Entering the 6th chapter, let us talk about something that rarely makes headlines but quietly shapes how the world sees you. Picture this. A man walks into the room late again. He apologizes, explains, maybe even laughs it off. But beneath the polite nods of others lies a silent truth. Each late arrival erodes their respect. The message is unspoken but clear. My time matters more than yours. Whether he means it or not, that is what people feel. Now imagine the opposite. Someone who arrives not just on time, but early, calm, composed, prepared. Without saying a word, that person communicates discipline, reliability, respect. The contrast is striking, isn't it? Seneca once wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." Chronic lateness is exactly that, time wasted. Not only your own, but the time of everyone who waits for you. Even with the best excuses, lateness becomes a habit that brands you as unreliable. People start adjusting, assuming you will not arrive when you promised. They lower their expectations. And that is not the kind of reputation you want attached to your name. Marcus Aurelius said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." Punctuality is not about the clock. It is about integrity. It is proof that you honor your word. Ask yourself honestly, how many times have you been late simply because you mismanaged your schedule? How often have you rushed out the door, stressed, heart racing, already behind before the day even began? Chronic lateness is not only an inconvenience to others, it robs you of peace. It places you in a state of constant catch-up, your life dictated by chaos rather than discipline. Why choose that suffering? Why not take command of time before it takes command of you? There is a story about a CEO known for his precision. He was never late, not once. At a high-level meeting, several attendees arrived late, expecting the usual forgiveness. The CEO stood, looked around the room and said, "Time is the most valuable resource we have. If you can't respect that, you can't be part of this team." Then he walked out. The silence that followed spoke louder than any reprimand. Those who arrived late understood how costly their carelessness had been. Punctuality is more than a habit. It is a declaration of who you are. If you struggle with lateness, the first step is not setting your alarm earlier, it is asking why. Are you overcommitting, failing to plan, underestimating the time it takes? Once you face the root cause, you can begin to change it. Because punctuality is not about minutes on a watch. It is about the mindset that refuses to waste what is finite and irreplaceable. There is an old saying worth remembering. Early is on time is late. Late is unacceptable. This perspective transforms the way you see time. Being punctual ceases to feel like a burden and instead becomes a badge of self-respect. It says, I care enough to prepare. I value your life as much as my own, and that kind of presence does not go unnoticed. People observe reliability more closely than they admit. They trust those who show up when they said they would. They confide in them, invest in them, follow them. Trust and respect are built in these small, consistent acts. Epictetus said, know first who you are, and then adorn yourself accordingly. If you believe yourself to be worthy of respect, your actions must mirror that belief. And few actions reflect it more clearly than showing up on time. So let us be clear. Being late is never just about minutes, it is about meaning. Each arrival is a statement of your values. Will you show the world that you are careless, or will you show them that you are disciplined, reliable, worthy of trust? In this choice lies more than reputation. In this choice lies character. And in this, as in all things, character is destiny. We've walked through the 6 habits that quietly erode respect: gossip, passive aggression, blame, neglect, complaint, and lateness. These are the cracks in our foundation, the subtle betrayals we commit against ourselves before the world ever does. But clearing away weakness is only the beginning. The Stoics never stopped at avoidance, they demanded construction. So we turn the page. Part A was about stripping away what weakens us. Part B is about building what strengthens us. It is the stage of strategy, of discipline, of principles that transform vulnerability into resilience. Here the teachings sharpen, silence becomes a blade, self-mastery becomes quiet dominance, and what once threatened to outsmart us loses its hold. Now the ground is cleared. It is time to build. Let us begin. As we step into the first chapter of this new part, imagine the moment when words hang in the air, waiting for you to answer an insult, a jab, or a provocation. The silence between their attack and your response feels like a blade pressed against your pride. Most people rush to fill that silence with anger, excuses, or defense, but the Stoic knows better. The Stoic understands that silence is not weakness, it is a weapon sharper than any reply. Now imagine this scene. You are at a crowded table. Someone mocks you, their voice rising so others can hear. Eyes turn toward you, expecting the clash, the quick comeback, the flare of temper. Instead, you stay still. You meet their gaze with calm. You let the silence breathe. Seconds stretch like eternity. The air grows heavy, but not on you, on them. What they wanted was your reaction. What they received was your refusal. And in that refusal, they lost. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "You always own the option of having no opinion." To respond is optional. To be baited is a choice. And the one who chooses silence in the right moment shows mastery not only over the situation, but over himself. Because the one who cannot be provoked cannot be controlled. Think of the times you regretted words spoken too quickly. The arguments that spiraled out of nothing. The nights replaying what you should have said. How different would life look if you mastered the art of withholding instead of pouring fuel on the fire? Silence is not emptiness. It is control. It is the refusal to surrender your ground. There is a story of a general whose enemies mocked him in front of his men, expecting him to explode. Instead, he stood silent, unmoved. His soldiers watched, confused at first, but soon they saw the truth. Their leader was not shaken by petty words. He was anchored, immovable, and that made them trust him even more. Strength is not always shown in striking back. Often it is shown in refusing to be dragged down. Epictetus said, "If someone speaks badly of you, do not defend yourself against their accusations. Reply simply, 'He does not know my other faults, else he would not have mentioned only these.' Do you see? This is the spirit of silence, not emptiness, but control. A calm that disarms, a restraint that unsettles. But silence is not only about enemies, it applies to daily life. In meetings, the one who does not rush to speak but listens deeply often carries the most weight. In arguments, the one who pauses before answering often wins the respect of both sides. Even in friendships, the one who can hold space without filling it with noise becomes the one others confide in. Silence is discipline, and discipline is power. The modern world tempts us to respond instantly. Texts, emails, arguments online. Everyone wants the last word. But ask yourself, what if the last word was no word at all? What if your calm became the answer? The one who learns to hold silence stands above the noise of the crowd. Silence is not retreat. It is strategy, calm turned into power. It says, I decide when to speak, and when I do, it will matter. People expect reaction. When they don't get it, they stumble, they reveal themselves. Meanwhile, you remain steady, untouched. So here is the truth. Never let anyone outsmart you into wasting your words. Words are precious, and the more carelessly you use them, the cheaper they become. But silence raises their value. When you finally do speak, it lands like thunder. And that is where power lies. In the choice, in the restraint, in the courage to hold your tongue when others are slaves to theirs. The one who controls silence cannot be ruled. And from here, we step into the deeper ways to guard against the envy and hidden resentment of those who seek to drag you down. Moving into the second chapter, let us face a shadow that often walks quietly beside us: envy. You may not see it, but you can feel it in the way someone's smile stiffens when you succeed, in the silence that follows your good news, in the backhanded compliment that hides a sting. Envy is silent fire. It burns not the one admired, but the one who carries it. And yet, if you do not see it clearly, it can still scorch you. Now imagine this. You've worked hard, sacrificed and achieved something meaningful. Perhaps a promotion, perhaps a relationship built on trust, perhaps simply the peace you fought to claim. Instead of joy from those around you, you sense distance. A friend who once cheered for you now withdraws. A colleague begins to question every move you make. Their coldness is not born of truth, it is born of comparison. And comparison, when poisoned by envy, turns admiration into resentment. Seneca once wrote, "He who envies others does not obtain peace of mind." The Stoics understood that envy is not about you, it is about the wound in another. Yet still, you must learn to recognize it, for envy can disguise itself as advice, as caution, even as false friendship. It whispers, don't reach too high, not because they fear for you, but because they fear being left behind. Think of a young athlete rising quickly. At first, Teammates support him, but as he excels, whispers begin. Some cheer less loudly, some quietly hope for his fall. His success becomes their mirror, reflecting not his strength, but their insecurities. Instead of training harder, they turn their energy toward tearing him down. He did nothing wrong, yet he became a target. This is the truth. When your light grows, others will notice the shadows it casts in their own lives. Epictetus taught, if someone is unhappy, remember, it is because of their judgments about things, not the things themselves. Their envy does not reveal your flaw. It reveals their pain. But here lies your task. Do not let their resentment pull you into pettiness. If you answer envy with arrogance, you feed it. If you answer with anger, you become chained to it. The Stoic response is clarity. You see envy for what it is, an affliction not yours to cure. Still, do not ignore the danger. Envy unchecked can turn into sabotage, gossip, betrayal. You must walk with both wisdom and caution. Guard your circle. Pay attention to the patterns in people's words and actions. Who rejoices when you rise? Who disappears? Who masks bitterness beneath praise? These signs matter. Respect all, but trust with discernment. And what of envy in yourself? Because none of us are immune. Perhaps you've felt that pang when someone else receives what you longed for. The Stoics remind us, the problem is not that they gained, it is that we compare. Marcus Aurelius wrote, a man should be upright, not kept upright. Another's success does not weaken you. It only exposes whether your roots are grounded in discipline or in longing for applause. At this stage, remember, envy cannot be avoided, but it can be mastered. When you see it in others, recognize that it speaks more of their struggle than of your worth. When you feel it in yourself, turn it into fuel. Ask, what can I learn from their rise? What discipline in me is still untrained? In this way, envy becomes a teacher rather than a trap. The truth is simple, though heavy. Not everyone will be glad for you. Some will celebrate, some will wait for your stumble. But your task is not to shrink so others feel comfortable. Your task is to keep walking with integrity, to grow stronger without apology, to understand that envy is a weight others carry, not a burden that belongs to you. And so the question remains, when envy shows its face, whether in your heart or in the eyes of another, will you let it dictate your path, or will you walk above it? From here, we turn toward an even darker mask, the presence of those whose intent is not just envy, but harm, the ones whose charm hides something far more dangerous. Advancing to the third chapter, we arrive at a darker threshold, where envy is no longer enough, and the mask slips to reveal something far more dangerous. Here is where charm turns into deception, where the smile conceals a blade, and where someone's presence leaves you uneasy, though you cannot explain why. This is the territory of the truly harmful, the ones who cloak their intentions behind kindness, while quietly seeking your fall. Now, picture a gathering where everyone laughs, glasses raised, voices warm. In the corner stands someone whose eyes follow every move, but never soften. They compliment you, but their words carry the edge of mockery. They offer help, but only when it binds you in debt. Around them, the air feels heavy, as though something unseen is pressing in. You cannot put your finger on it, yet you know. Evil does not always roar. Sometimes it whispers. The Stoics warned us to read beneath appearances. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. A man may present himself as radiant, but if his thoughts are corrupt, eventually his actions will betray him." Seneca cautioned that we should test character not in moments of ease, but in the small, consistent patterns that reveal truth. The danger of evil is not in its mask, it is in how easily we accept the mask as real. Consider the story of a leader who rose through charm. His words were honey, his gestures generous. People trusted him quickly, but behind closed doors, he sowed division, fed gossip, and played allies against each other. By the time the truth surfaced, many had already been wounded, reputations destroyed, friendships broken. His weapon was not power, but pretense, and those who suffered most were not the weak, but those who ignored their first unease, convincing themselves it was nothing. Here's where the Stoic discipline of perception saves us. Epictetus said, "If someone tries to harm you, remember, it is not their act, but your interpretation that matters." This does not mean dismissing danger. It means you train your eye to see what others refuse to see. Instead of being dazzled by words, you watch for actions. Instead of being lulled by charm, you test for consistency. You ask, does this person honor their promises? Do they speak of others with respect when those others are not in the room? Do they act with integrity when there is nothing to gain? At this stage, you must understand that discernment is not cynicism. To be cautious is not to be cold. It is to protect your peace from those who seek to fracture it. A Stoic does not live in paranoia, but neither does he walk blind. He sees clearly, he trusts carefully, and he withdraws without apology when someone reveals poison beneath their smile. But let me turn the mirror for a moment. Have you ever worn such a mask yourself? Perhaps not to harm, but to hide. Pretending to be agreeable when bitterness sat inside, offering words you did not mean because truth felt dangerous. That too is a seed of the same pattern, and the longer we wear masks, the harder it becomes to take them off. The Stoic path demands alignment. Your words, your actions, your thoughts dyed in the same color. So here is the warning, sharp and simple. Evil rarely announces itself. It waits, it flatters, it tests your boundaries until you no longer notice they are broken. And then, when you are unguarded, it strikes. But here is the promise too. With clarity, with discipline, with courage, you can see through the disguise. You can step back before the snare tightens. You can protect what is yours. The question remains, when the mask of charm stares back at you, will you be fooled by the smile, or will you honor the unease that whispers truth? From here, we step into an even more personal battle, not with the shadows outside, but with the weakness within, the quiet temptation to abandon ourselves for the sake of others. From here, we step into the fourth chapter, where the lesson is no longer about protecting yourself from others, but about learning to protect yourself from your own neglect. Imagine a man who spends his life giving his energy to friends, his time to work, his patience to family, until one day he looks in the mirror and sees only fatigue staring back. His face is tired, his body worn, his spirit heavy. He has been everything to everyone, but nothing to himself. And slowly, without even noticing, he has betrayed the one person he was never supposed to abandon, himself. Now imagine this in your own life. How many times have you said yes when you wanted to say no? How often have you poured yourself out for others, only to find your own cup empty? We mistake self-neglect for virtue, as though burning out for others makes us noble. But the Stoics remind us that strength cannot come from emptiness. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "A man's worth is no greater than the worth of his ambitions." If your ambition is only to please, to sacrifice endlessly, then your worth becomes tied to what others demand, not to who you truly are. There is a story of a woman who was praised by everyone for her generosity. She never refused a request. She helped, she gave, she carried burdens. Outwardly, she seemed admirable, but inside, she felt hollow. Resentment grew, bitterness festered, and the very people she helped began to feel her unspoken anger. What looked like kindness was in fact self-abandonment. Eventually she broke. Her body collapsed under stress, her spirit dimmed, and those same people she had once supported stepped back. Her lesson was harsh but clear. When you forget yourself, others will too. Epictetus said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." To be someone of strength, you must first decide that you matter. This is not selfishness, it is clarity. If you do not set boundaries, no one will set them for you. If you do not rest, no one will force you to stop. If you do not guard your energy, the world will take it piece by piece until nothing remains. The Stoic does not live for the approval of the crowd. He lives by his principles, even if the crowd misunderstands. Think of it like this. You are the guardian of a flame. If you let it burn too wildly for others, it extinguishes. But if you guard it with care, feed it with discipline, protect it with silence, it grows steady and bright. And from that flame, you can warm others without losing your fire. Self-priority is not about isolation. It is about building a strength so solid that when others lean on you, you do not break. At this stage, you must understand the deeper truth. People will take as much as you allow. They will pull from your time, your energy, your peace, not always from malice, sometimes simply from habit. And if you never say enough, they will never stop asking. Seneca warned, "He who is everywhere is nowhere." If you give yourself away to everything, you belong to nothing, not even yourself. So pause and ask, where in your life are you betraying yourself for the sake of others? Where are you eroding your own strength in the name of being good? The answer may be uncomfortable, but it is necessary. Respect begins not with what others give you, but with what you give yourself. And this is the paradox. The more you guard your energy, the more others respect it. The man who says no with firmness is valued more than the man who says yes with resentment. The one who protects his time is admired more than the one who sacrifices it endlessly. People may resist at first, but in the end, they adjust, because respect always bends toward those who respect themselves. Here's where the Stoic path sharpens. Prioritize yourself, not to shut the world out, but to strengthen the part of you that must face it. In doing so, you build a fortress, not of walls, but of presence. And within that fortress, your peace cannot be stolen. So the question remains, will you continue to scatter yourself thin, or will you gather yourself whole? From this choice, everything else flows. And as we move forward, we will see that true strength is not just in protecting what you have, but in killing the weaker self within you that resists growth. Advancing to the 5th chapter, we arrive at the battlefield within, the war against the weaker self that lingers inside each of us. That self whispers excuses, craves comfort, and fears the weight of responsibility. It tells you to wait until tomorrow, to choose what is easy, to avoid what is painful. Yet every time you listen, a little part of your strength dies. And the world does not outsmart you. You outsmart yourself. Now imagine waking up in the morning. The alarm sounds. One voice says, "Get up, train, work, move." The other says, "5 more minutes, you've earned it, rest." Which one do you obey? It seems small, but that single choice is the pattern of your life. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, 'I am rising to do the work of a human being.'" He knew that the greatest battle was not against enemies outside, but against the weakness inside that drags us back into sleep. There is a man I once knew who dreamed of writing a book. He spoke of it for years, always with passion, always with detail, but when the time came to sit and write, his weaker self prevailed. "I'm tired. I'll start next week. I need more research first." 10 years passed. The book was never written. His failure was not due to lack of talent, but to his inability to kill the self within him that fed on delay. Excuses are clever assassins. They never attack head-on. They simply whisper until you lay your sword down willingly. Seneca said, "While we are postponing, life speeds by." Each delay is not neutral, it is loss. Loss of time, loss of growth, loss of opportunities that never return. The weaker self feeds on postponement. The stronger self thrives on immediate action. The Stoics remind us that discipline is freedom, not chains. Because when you choose discipline, you no longer live at the mercy of moods or temptations. You live anchored in principle. Think of a soldier sharpening his blade each day. Even when there is no battle, he trains. Even when others laugh at his discipline, he prepares. Then, when the storm comes, he is ready while others panic. That is what it means to kill the weaker self daily. You do not wait for crisis. You forge resilience in the quiet hours, so when trial arrives, you are already unshaken. Epictetus taught, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. Do not wish to be strong, act strong. Do not wish to be disciplined, live disciplined." Each action builds the man you are becoming. Each choice is either a step toward mastery or a step back into weakness. The line between them is razor thin, yet everything hangs on it. At this stage, ask yourself, what version of you do you allow to win each day? The one who rises with clarity or the one who delays and justifies? The choice is made not in dramatic moments, but in small, repeated acts. The weaker self will always argue. It will always beg for rest, for indulgence, for the path of least resistance. But the Stoic knows that growth is born of friction. Seneca said, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." If you avoid the grind, you avoid becoming who you were meant to be. So let this be clear. You cannot negotiate with weakness. You cannot reason with it. You must kill it. Every day. In choices so small they seem invisible, yet they define everything. Wake when you said you would. Work when you planned. Speak when silence is cowardice. Act when delay feels safer. Each time you do, the stronger self grows. Each time you refuse, the weaker self dies a little more. And here lies the paradox. By killing the weaker version of yourself, you are not destroying anything vital. You are uncovering the real you. The self that is steady, courageous, and disciplined. The self that cannot be bent by excuses or shaken by fear. So the question stands before you like a sword. Will you surrender to the weaker self that keeps you chained, or will you strike it down each day until only strength remains? From here, we step into the art of presence itself. How to command respect, not by noise, but by the weight of your words and the discipline of your silence. Entering the 6th chapter, we reach the art that shapes how the world listens, or does not listen, to you. It is not your job title. It is not your wealth. It is not how loudly you speak. Respect is commanded through presence, through words delivered with restraint, and through silence that unsettles more than shouting ever could. Now imagine a crowded room filled with noise. One man shouts to prove himself, his voice rising above the rest, desperate to be heard. Another sits quietly, watching, weighing the moment. When he finally speaks, he says only a few words, but those words cut through the chaos like a blade. People lean in. They remember his voice. That is the power of controlled speech. It is not quantity that commands respect. It is precision. Epictetus gave us a timeless reminder. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we may listen twice as much as we speak. To speak well is to listen first. Those who rush to fill silence reveal their insecurity. Those who wait, who choose their words carefully, reveal mastery. Silence itself is a weapon. It makes others uncertain. It forces them to wonder what you are thinking. Consider how often people weaken themselves with unnecessary apologies. They say, "Sorry," when no wrong has been done. "Sorry I'm late," instead of "Thank you for waiting." "Sorry to bother you," instead of "Do you have a moment?" Each misplaced apology lowers their presence, teaching others to see them as smaller than they are. Marcus Aurelius warned, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." A man who respects himself does not apologize for existing. He carries himself as though his time and his voice matter, because they do. Let's bring in a story. I once saw a leader confronted by hostility during a public meeting. An opponent insulted him, tried to bait him into anger. The crowd waited for retaliation. Instead, he held the silence. Then he said calmly, "If you believe that about me, then you believe it. I don't need to argue." And he stopped. That restraint was devastating. The aggressor lost his power because there was nothing to push against. The man who refuses to be provoked wins a respect that shouting can never buy. This is where Stoic philosophy cuts deep. Seneca wrote, "Speech that carries weight is the speech that is deliberate." You don't need to fill space with explanations. You don't need to defend yourself against every word. You need to speak only what is necessary and let silence do the rest. In music, pauses create rhythm. In conversation, pauses create power. But words are not just about restraint. They are also about boundaries. Weak speech says, "I'll try." Strong speech says, "I cannot take this on right now." Weak speech explains endlessly. Strong speech is brief, clear, and final. People may resist at first, but over time, they respect the one who sets limits with clarity. Epictetus taught, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." If you would be respected, you must speak like someone who respects himself. At this stage, think about tone. A rushed tone betrays anxiety. A steady tone communicates confidence. Humor can soften tension, but too much of it erodes weight. Every word you speak either strengthens your authority or weakens it. And authority, once lost, is difficult to rebuild. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself each morning that life is short and death certain. With that awareness, should we waste words? Should we throw them carelessly into the wind? No. Each word should be chosen as if it were the last. And remember, presence speaks louder than language. How you sit, how you breathe, how you look at someone when they speak. These things declare your strength before you open your mouth. A man fidgeting, apologizing, rushing, he signals weakness before his words even begin. A man calm, grounded, deliberate, he signals authority even in silence. Respect flows naturally to those who embody composure. Here is the paradox. Those who ask for respect rarely receive it. Those who demand it through force may gain obedience, but never loyalty. True respect is given to the one who does not beg, who does not force, but who aligns his words with his actions. Seneca wrote, "Most powerful is he who has himself in his own power." Control yourself, and the world cannot help but notice. So let me ask, what does your speech reveal about you? Do you rush, over-explain, apologize without cause? Or do you pause, measure, and deliver words that carry weight? Do you allow silence to work for you, or do you fear it? Do your words set boundaries, or blur them? These are not small questions. They are the difference between being dismissed and being remembered. There is one final truth to hold. Speech is not merely a tool for persuasion. It is the mirror of your inner discipline. The man who rambles has a scattered mind. The man who interrupts has an impatient soul. The man who controls his tongue shows he controls himself, and the one who commands himself cannot be outsmarted. So let this lesson stand firm. Respect is not won by noise, but by weight. Not by volume, but by presence. Not by asking, but by embodying. Speak less, but mean every word. Pause longer, but let silence work in your favor. Draw clear lines with your speech and let others adjust to them. And in every conversation, let your discipline speak louder than your voice. This is where all the pieces converge. The silence of chapter 1, the clarity against envy, the discernment of masks, the priority of self, the death of weakness, all of them gather here in the way you carry yourself when you speak. For words are not just sounds. They are proof of who you are. And the man who has mastered his speech has already mastered himself. Before we close, take these ideas out of theory and into your day. Cut the gossip. Speak plainly instead of playing games. Own your choices. Show up prepared and on time. Each small discipline is a brick in the character you are building. Respect is not demanded. It is earned in quiet, ordinary moments that no one sees but you. If one lesson stands out, practice it today. Not tomorrow. Today. When the old habit knocks, pause, breathe, and choose the stronger response. That single choice is how the tide turns. If this message resonated, you can subscribe as a personal promise to keep training your mind. Think of it as setting a reminder to return to the work of self-mastery. No pressure, only a steady commitment to growth. I would love to hear what you will practice first. Drop a short comment with the words, "Choose discipline." Let it be your marker and your start line. Remember, mastery is a lifelong path. There is no finish line, only the next deliberate step. When you fall, stand up with more clarity. When you succeed, stay humble and keep going. The world respects the person who is consistent, calm, and reliable because that person respects themselves. In the next video, we will sharpen this rule into daily drills you can apply in minutes so that calm turns into power and restraint turns into presence. Until then, walk with intention, speak with care, and let your actions carry the weight of who you are becoming.